What is going on, guys? Welcome to Bet Legendz. It's Beau and Kyle from KB Betting. We're here with Gator Sports today, Gator Sports Betting. Patrick Gates, welcome to the show. Happy to have you on. Tell us something about yourself. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, boys. Been following you guys for a while, so it's always nice to connect and kind of do some content together. I know you guys are more in the realm of NBA and kind of NFL essentially, where I kind of focus in on NHL in particular, and then even some golf as well. So yeah, no, not much going on. Continue to kind of write daily articles. You can see them on the oddsbreakers.com. I post daily NHL there, and then a weekly PGA recap as well, kind of on the upcoming tournaments. It's only PGA right now. I haven't really got into the Euro Tour or even the new Saudi Golf League yet. So that's kind of where you can find me. On Instagram is Gator Sports Betting, I believe. And then on Twitter is at Gator Betting. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Yeah, saw some of the stuff you put out recently with some of the tournaments going on in golf. I love all the pics you post on your page. But, you're always posting that analysis to go along with it. So, I think Beau and I aren't too familiar with the golf game, but always seeing you post, so that helps.
Yeah, no, I've been hot in the golf game lately. We've caught the past two outright, so definitely on a little streak. I doubt it will continue, honestly, with just how crazy the golf has been this year. But no, always nice to get two winners underneath the belt early. So we'll see what happens moving forward.
Definitely seems like, every weekend someone else shows up big. Like last weekend I did a make the cut.
Yep.
And it hit, and I felt so good about it because I recently, like last year, I got into golf, so I've been kind of watching a bit, watching swings, and I find myself now just kind of watching it, and I'm like, gotta bet on it at some point. So definitely love the diversity that we get in our page from your Gator bets. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of the crazier sports too, because you take these guys outright at like 60, 70, 80 to 1, and you kind of come down Sunday and they're within a stroke or two, and you're like, holy shit, this has a chance of hitting. And it's some of the best betting you can do. And then the other top 20, top 40s as well. So it's awesome to get into, and it's just it's really an expanding industry, which is kind of the amount of content guys that are starting to get in there as well. So it's awesome. I really enjoy it.
Where are you from originally? What's your upbringing like into getting into betting? That's what I always find interesting about people.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. Went to high school, and then I started to. Now I live in Boston, so I went to college out in Boston here and kind of stuck around the area. But yeah, no, I mean, I hate to say it, but gambling I was exposed at a very young age. My grandfather, he worked at the racetrack. So that would be our daily or weekly activity with him was we'd go to the racetrack, Buffalo Raceway, and watch the horses. So even at about 4 to 5, I was running around Buffalo Raceway with him as he was taking tickets. So that was kind of my first introduction to it very early. Loved the horses. And I think that's kind of what he passed on. But yeah, I mean, a lot of my cousins were big into golf too, and then grew up playing hockey. So it's just kind of the path I followed from there.
Are you a New York sports fan or a Boston sports fan?
I despise all Boston sports, and I'll put that on the record right now. I despise every single Boston team. Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Sabres, diehard fan. It's been a struggle, especially this year, seeing the Bills get knocked out like that. Still not over it, clearly, but it's that's probably all those are some of my main two teams, I'd say, from Buffalo. MLB is shockingly the Red Sox, just because we used to come up here all the time. So not all Boston sports fans, I should be clear.
Yeah, love that. I'm a diehard New York fan. Jets, Mets, all the bad teams.
Yeah.
Beau's a Patriots fan.
Oh, big Patriots fan.
I can't do it.
Massachusetts, so
yeah,
it's hard to not go with them as well with the Patriots love. So
yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, I was at the game at Gillette this year, and it was nice to see it. Finally, we get a win in Gillette with some fans, so that was fun. But yeah, you guys have caused us a lot of years of pain. Beau.
Tom Brady has made his stamp in Buffalo.
Yeah, unfortunately, not in a good way.
Yeah.
Let's talk about NFL. I guess Super Bowl just happened a couple days ago. Bengals made it kind of surprisingly. Joe Burrow, young quarterback, makes it. Matthew Stafford, first time. You had any thoughts on the Super Bowl? Did you kind of expect the Rams to pull it out? Just any general thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess even like you hear the 2 weeks leading up to it, like Bengals Rams, but I guess like it really kind of hit me. I'm like the Bengals are in the Super Bowl, like just like watching the pregame show. I'm like, is this real? And I mean, you hear all the analysis in the 2 weeks leading up, you're like, they don't stand a chance or whatever. But I mean, they played their best game, but it came down to Darnold. Like everyone kind of thought the storylines were exactly kind of played out. Their D line dominated. Since these O-line couldn't really hold them as well. But it was really kind of wasn't a like mundane game, I'd say. Like, I guess fourth quarter comeback, obviously, but I think everyone expected it to some degree. Like, I don't know. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts were on it.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a good game. I'm happy
Yep.
it came down to the final few minutes there. The past few Super Bowls weren't necessarily the same. Thought going into it is pretty evenly matched. You know, it was
Yeah.
pretty much a toss up which team was going to come out. I know Beau was on the Bengals. I was on the Rams. The spread was extremely tough to bet on. Happy
Yep.
it didn't go that way, but good game. You know, kind of what I expected. Aaron Donald, you know, having some clutch plays at the end there. Matthew Stafford leading the game-winning drive. So all the storylines going to add up.
Yeah. Happy to see Stafford kind of get a Super Bowl, I guess. I mean, he spent how many years in Detroit and finally kind of gets his
Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. Gets his wish, gets traded to LA. So I feel good for Stafford though. That's kind of, I guess, the one storyline that I'm happy to kind of see come true is that he gets his ring.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking forward to, you know, each weekend I took the Bengals. I was just feeling like this is a scary hot team. You don't want to play them right now. So you know, I stuck with my gut and I stayed with them. Although I had a lot of fun watching the Rams this year. Big fan of Matt Stafford. Always thought he was a good quarterback. Needed a good team. And I had Cooper Cup in fantasy, so I definitely watched a lot of their games. And you know, I was happy to see his tremendous season really being topped off with a Super Bowl. So that was super exciting to watch. And you know, like Kyle said, a lot of the headlines added up real well. Can't be upset the young Bengals didn't get it done. So the Rams were completely deserving.
Yeah, I agree. And you wonder where the Bengals are going from here. I mean, their O-line is basically a complete rebuild. You're wondering when the next time you're going to see them in the playoff, or I guess the Super Bowl is going to be. And I know it's a lot of people are like, oh, they can rebound next year, but the AFC is so loaded.
They're gonna need someone to come over, a veteran type player. They're gonna have to draft someone that can probably play right away. You know, it's possible. Obviously, Joe Burrow was under a lot of pressure, and he still performed at a high level. He's got great weapons, so it's really what they can bring to the table in terms of protection. So I think that's probably going to be their full focus. You know, their defense looks solid. They've got some guys lined up for a couple years, so it's a go time for them.
Yeah, I agree. And the Rams, I don't think will be back for a while. I mean, they pretty much went it all in this year, so I don't really see them returning either for a long time.
I think Cincinnati, it's a small market, but I think some free agents are going to want to go there this offseason, seeing what they did this year, seeing how good Joe has been, you know, those weapons. You know, I could see a lot of free agents wanting to go there this offseason. And I don't know. We'll see what the Steelers are like next year. Steelers don't have, who knows who's going to play quarterback for the Steelers. Ravens might be better, hopefully, with Lamar Jackson. He's kind of up and down. We'll see how that, you know, division plays out.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Bills too. I mean, Josh Allen kind of took off, and you have free agents kind of come and want to play, and guys take pay cuts to resign. So I think Cincinnati almost models it after that of they have their QB in place, and they kind of try to build a team around him as best they can while he's still on a rookie contract.
I know you're the NHL guy. I'll ask you just some NHL. I think trade deadline's coming up.
Trade deadlines in March 21st, I believe. But yeah, I mean, the NHL has been crazy. A lot of head coaching changes going on. Edmonton gets a new one. Montreal just hired Martin St. Louis, new head coaching change there. Winnipeg's got a new one last month. And then Vancouver is kind of going through a rebuild on their front office. But yeah, I mean, it's the midpoint of the season. You start to see teams post All-Star break evaluate their chances this year at a run. Montreal is obviously not even close to kind of coming back to the Stanley Cup from where they were last year. The loss of Carey Price at the beginning of the year, Shea Weber at the beginning of the year. I mean, it's a young team, and we'll see what St. Louis can do. But he was coaching a Pee Wee team before this. So they pretty much hired him off the street here. I guess they brought in LeCavier on the front office. So they're really going for the whole Tampa Bay rebuild here with their Stanley Cup run that they made back, I think in like, I don't even know when. I want to say '06, but I know that's wrong. And then, I mean, besides that, Calgary just adds Tyler Toffoli, speaking from Montreal. So Montreal is just really loading up on picks and young draft just young prospects there. Flames are definitely a team to watch out in the West as of now, but it seems like a pretty clear cut, like top tier. You got your Carolina Hurricanes, you got the Colorado, you have Florida, and then even Tampa Bay could sneak up there too. And then Vegas gets Eichel back tomorrow. So it's a pretty top heavy lineup this year in terms of Stanley Cups. I don't really expect too many teams, too many underdogs to make a run when you really look at the board.
And did you have a team you picked out in the beginning of the season? Is there a certain team you're feeling right now? Maybe possibly a dark horse?
If you're going to look at a dark horse, I'd say the Pittsburgh Penguins. They've been playing better as of late. Jerry's kind of completely turned around 180. He was almost the reason they lost in the playoffs last year. He was just awful. And now they have a fully healthy team. Malkin's back, Crosby's back. I don't know if Rust is, but their team's very solid up front. They have depth scoring. So I think that's a team too with a veteran presence that can definitely kind of be a dark horse this year as well.
They went on that crazy run, I think, like a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
They were just winning pretty much every night, it seemed like.
Yeah, they them in Colorado too. Colorado won like 19 straight at home, I think, before being upset by Arizona of all teams. So yeah, Pittsburgh's definitely a team to watch out for, but I like Carolina. I think that would be my Stanley Cup pick as of right now.
I was going to ask you if you had any futures bets on anything, but is that where he's going, Carolina?
I'm not a big, I mean, this might sound weird, but I'm not a big futures guy, especially when it comes to the NHL. I'd much rather kind of go day to day. It is like so unpredictable. I know a lot of cappers are futures and they'll have kind of their team before at the beginning of the season. But honestly, I mean, this is my second year of like full coverage of the NHL. So even in the off season, it was a lot of PGA and just kind of getting everything in order. So I didn't really have that much time to kind of put together a full in-depth analysis on the NHL this year. But I think next year for sure, I'm definitely going to start to try my luck at the futures market for sure.
NHL's on the come up, it seems like, just more in the betting world and just in general, with TV and everything like that. It's kind of, you can tell these next few years are going to be big just for the league in general. Yeah,
I think the ESPN contract was kind of a major turning point for them as well to kind of broadcast their coverage, provide out of market coverage of these teams that you really normally don't hear of just on a streaming platform. And that goes for the PGA as well. They just got picked up on ESPN Plus at the beginning of the 2022 season, and the coverage has been phenomenal. So I think those are definitely two emerging markets when you're looking at betting, besides obviously your top tier of NBA, MLB, and kind of NFL. But yeah, no, I think it's a huge push to kind of get that broadcasted more out on different platforms. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Definitely getting more exposure, and being on ESPN is, you're scrolling through that at night, you're going to watch the game for a moment. And I also wanted to ask you, just because I thought this was hilarious.
Yep.
Coyotes next year playing at ASU in their small barn. I think it's the smallest. It's going to be 5,000.
5,000. Yep.
1,000 capacity. Smallest since 1918. I believe the Montreal Canadiens had a bigger arena at that point.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a take that I know like a lot of people are against, but I think it's great for Arizona. Arizona barely has any attendance as is, and it's like they're like the Sabres right now. There's no one showing up to games. The Sabres attendance average this year was around 8,000. So if they can pack a barn of rowdy college kids every night, or just more people in the area at 5,000, it's going to be a crazy atmosphere. So I'm all for it. I mean, they don't draw anyone originally, so move to Tempe and just pack the house. Like, just pack it, fill it every night. It's 5,000 people. They should be able to easily do that, and it'll just be a crazy atmosphere of just, if Coyotes games were just one of the rowdiest teams in the NHL. So I'm all for it. They need something there, because if not, they're going to be out in Quebec or another market very soon. So why not? It's a crazy crazy proposal, but I'm all for it here with
I
the
love
Arizona Coyotes.
it, man. I love it. I think
Yeah.
it's a really great setup. And plus, pack the house. Already you look at you're watching the game and you see how many seats are empty, and you're like, do they need that big of a place? So I love it too, man. I think it's great.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be hilarious trying to see the TV coverage of that place moving forward. But I'm very excited for it. I'm very excited for it.
Let's get into just betting in general. I know that's kind of just what you do. You have your page on Instagram. You do stuff for odds breakers. It seems like kind of like the betting industry is kind of just on this, almost huge incline right now. Beau's actually in New York. I know you're originally from New York. New York
Yep.
just legalized it. Beau's been going crazy on FanDuel. I know that.
Same game parlays, gotta love
Yeah.
them.
Exciting. A bit exhilarating, actually.
What are your general thoughts? There's probably, I think there's a lot of people on the outside still looking in saying, I think there's a lot of bad stigma just around betting and gambling in general. There probably always has been.
Yeah.
But what's kind of your take on the whole thing, and what kind of brought you just into becoming a capper, making a page, and everything of that sort?
Yeah, I mean, you look at you mentioned the stigma of gambling before, and I mean, it's illegal in most states still, right? Like it's not illegal in most states or even countries for that matter. So there's obviously a negative stigma around it, like bookies and like scammers on Instagram and just in general. I mean, there's a lot of bad parts of the industry. Like you can't kind of shy around it. There is a lot of negative aspects of this industry when you look at it, like people go in debt, and that's the whole tough thing too, is like, how do you promote gambling in a healthy way? And you see FanDuel, DraftKings, everyone start to dump money into marketing with these promos, these odds boosts and everything. And obviously social media is the future, but I think they have to kind of figure out a way to promote it and almost obviously kind of adhere to every guideline there, but almost promote it in like a safe and positive way, which is just very tough to do because it's not, gambling's really like at its core, it's not that. Like it's tough too. So, I mean, the other issue too is you see FanDuel and DraftKings post these crazy parlay tickets, and it's like get rich quick schemes almost, which you look at the odds for a reason. The probability of those hitting is like below 1. So it's just encouraging people to place these dumb bets on 20 team parlays. So I think it's got to be a better kind of awareness from them, almost, of teaching people to kind of come up with the process themselves. Because I know it's tough to get into, and that's the other thing too. You see people, all these negative comments about these newcomers getting into the industry, of just like, people have to understand everyone starts a different place and everyone's continuously at a different place in the industry, whether they're doing it for 10 years or 5 years, or just betting your first bet this week. Like it has to be more of a community setting. I think that's not kind of encouraged now. Even, I mean, you guys deal with it too. You'll deal with negative comments about like missing a bet or something. And it's definitely discouraging for people to get into as well. So I think it needs more of a community setting of just people, like good people in the industry, which there's far and few between, but there is a few out there that need to kind of get more exposure, I'd say, in leading this charge of just like promoting gambling in a healthier and safer way, basically.
No, extremely well said. I mean, you look at a lot of guys and the way they move, and you're like, you're essentially a scammer. It's like some people are going crazy into debt. And that's really, like you said, there is a lot of negatives to this. A lot of people really ruin their lives, unfortunately. And
yeah,
people like us don't really see it obviously in that moment. Obviously we understand it, but like some people are really, really, really struggling, especially before the legalization of betting, especially with bookies. So over time, you look at it, it's a sickness for some, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough too, but you guys see it. You're on Instagram daily. You guys are one of the bigger pages as well, but it's these guys who only post winning tickets, or these guys who promote that they're up 100 units a week and their unit size is 50 units. And there's so much like behind the scenes, like essentially just dark magic marketing that these people do to elude first-time bettors into buying their packages, into essentially just giving them like a false outlook on what gambling is. Like gambling's gambling. It's very tough to do. Like the most incredibly like successful people hit it like a 54-55% rate. Like it's not, you're not seeing your 70% returns or even, and kind of whatever. Like it's just mind-boggling to me at some points, like to see these there's actual people behind these accounts like promoting this misinformation when it comes to gambling. And you see it on social media more and more of just these fake pages and these scammers just looking to take people's money for picks on a day-to-day basis when they just give out a minus 250 money line or their whale 5-unit lock of the year, like double twisty. I don't know. Like it's ridiculous. Like when you look at it, like, and I guess that's more from an experience thing of knowing that these people are fake. But if you do see 100 whale unit max play from Vegas Dave, people are gonna be like, oh my God, like it's a lock. And it's gambling. There's no such thing as a lock. So it's a lot of just information that it's a lot of education, I should say, that needs to be held in the industry, especially when coming into targeting new bettors and just making them more aware of what the industry is, essentially.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think it's, it's still new enough and it's still coming up enough that pages like ours, like yours, I know you're a capper, you give away free picks. We do the same. When there's pages out there, I won't name them, but they're posting these crazy parlays. They're saying it's, make money quick.
Yep.
Someone can just scroll and see that and be like, I want to get in, I want to do this. And that's where that kind of, scammer marketing kind of stigma comes in, where people are like, we can get these newcomers to come in and take their money. You can never guarantee a winner, as much as people say they can, you can't. It's not realistic. But that's just kind of the world we live in now. I know you're a capper yourself. You go out there, like I said, you put out free picks just like we do. It looks like you do a ton of analysis, you do a ton of, analytical research and things like that. Do you have any kind of, strategies you go about to put together your bets? Do you have any, recommendations for people, kind of getting into it? We're kind of talking about these newcomers coming in and how we can just make it kind of more of a community and more of like a safe place for people to not fall into these desperate holes that they fall into.
Yeah. And I think it starts with tracking your bets. And I said that's the number one thing you can do. Whether you're a newcomer and you look at whether you've been following the NFL, let's say week 1, you're like, okay, these are the teams I'm going to pick, money line against the spread, over, under, whatever, receiving props, whatever. You don't have to bet it. Like you don't. You can literally just track your bets, say this is what I would have allocated for each bet, and then track it. See where you go along, see where you succeed. Maybe you're better in a prop market. Maybe you're better on over-unders. Maybe you're better against the spread. Track yourself for a while. And by all means, you can place your bets if you'd like, but just understand the unit sizing of don't go all in if it's your first time. Like start off small, track your bets and follow where and see kind of just where you're better at. Everyone has a niche, whether it's a specific sport, a specific market, kind of whatever you want to do. I'd say just basically track your bets and manage your budget. Obviously, those are the two big things. And then once you start to say you like your Beau and you're like, I love the Bengals minus 6.5 this week, shop around, look at different books. There's never just one book in a market, especially when a legalized state. Shop around, see if you can get a better line, see if you can get them at 6. So, I mean, it's just basically just start from the beginning and don't compare yourself to others. There's people who've been in this industry for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, and you always try to want to be them. But everyone, you have to understand, everyone starts at a different point. So just start off kind of what you're comfortable with and go from there. Don't overdo it from the beginning. That's when people get in trouble. So just start off slow, track your bets, manage your budget, and then shop for your lines. I'd say those are the first 3 things you should do kind of when getting into the industry. I don't know about you guys, if you guys have any kind of thoughts on that as well.
No, I think that's, great feedback. See how you're doing without losing money first. If losing 200 is going to cause you a hassle, then maybe don't do that. If it's nothing,
Yep.
to go ahead, test out your luck. Maybe you really learn how it feels to lose that. But really, I'm a big statistical guy. I go really deep into the stats, whether it's at home, how they are, certain players' progressions, where they've been hitting recently, whether it's, has he been scoring 24 points? Why is he so low? And I would say I definitely look more at spreads and, obviously money lines than over unders. I know Kyle has definitely gotten much more into over unders than me. I just find that I'm able to kind of gauge out the team a little bit better than the number of points they score, because that varies at times. But it's tricky, and that part of that is figuring out what's your niche, like you said, what area do you really strive in. So I think monitoring your bets like that is a fantastic thing for newcomers to do.
Yeah, I mean, the statistical part's a big thing for me too. I think, you don't have to bet on every game you watch or every game that's on. This can be profitable in the long term if do it right. Like you said, if the money line doesn't seem right, if the stats are not adding up, you don't have to bet it. You can find other edges. You can look at other books. You can look at team totals. You can look at alternate spreads. You can dig into it, but you only want to put your money where you're confident. You don't want to, gamble what you can't afford. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. And that's kind of the big stigma right now is, you can make a lot of money if you bet a lot of money. And unfortunately, that's what some of these books are trying to, hook you with. But you could definitely be profitable in the long run. I think it's, like you said, tracking your bets, making sure you're on point with what you're doing, keep a monthly schedule of everything you're betting, make sure your budget's on key. Those are all just the important factors going into it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all those points. And you see now there's more and more new sites daily of just where you can find information. I mean, obviously there's probably pay for sites out there, but in terms of the NHL, you have so many just analysis of new statistical sites coming up that will give you the information you want. So, I mean, do your research, shop around. There's plenty of websites out there that can give you the insight or the information that you're looking for. And I think you made a great point of you don't have to bet every game. Like there's no need to, especially kind of when you look at like an NHL slate or an NFL week, there's a ton of games going on. So you don't have to bet everyone, just bet a few that you feel more confident in. And that kind of goes along with your budget, essentially your unit size.
I was going to say, absolutely. It's funny how you really get a taste of like losing money that first time. And, as cappers and gamblers, you slowly start to regress a little bit. But unfortunately, I think some people don't. And that's when they begin to chase games. That's a big thing I've been seeing around is you see these people doing their live bets, like chase this. That means I'm down money and I'm trying to chase it back and I want everyone to follow me. So I see a lot of that going on. Obviously there's sometimes we've all live bet before. Yep. Sometimes we feel good about it, but I just think the promotion of it is just, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
It's chasing money, maybe you need to sit this one out. You already lost enough.
That's another thing too. Everyone has losing weeks, whether everyone wants to admit it or not. Like everyone loses weeks, whether you sell premium picks, whether you don't. It's gambling. You're going to have some down weeks. It's like stuff's going to happen. Games aren't going to go your way. And you have to kind of be able to sit back at the end of the week or whatever and look at it, be like, okay, what wasn't I looking at? What did I miss in this game? And just kind of have a better reflection on those games itself. But people have to understand, like, you're going to lose. You're not going to win all the time. So these pages promoting only winning days it's not true. And that should be your number one sign to stay away from them if they only post their winning picks or if they only post how many units they're up in a week. Because that's not true. Like no one continually wins in gambling. And that's just a fact.
That's the biggest thing that drives me crazy. We get people DMing us all the time being like, is this person real? They want me to buy their picks. You just take a look at the page and it's like, apparently they've never lost, they just win every day. It's not real, but that's, some people fall for that trick more often than not.
Especially if they don't ever post their picks. It's not like they're ever showing what they do beforehand. It's only like last night we killed it. It's like, how am I supposed to believe you? Like, it's
we're up.
You got your chain on and you're like, yeah, get out of here, man.
Vegas Dave and Parlay Travie, the two biggest losers out there. Those guys suck. I don't mind calling them out. They suck. They're the worst thing for gambling ever. And they just provide this false narrative that you can be some major handicapper and sell $1,000, $10,000 game picks at a -300 money line and claim you're the GOAT or whatever. It's absurd. But that's what's wrong with the industry. And honestly, it's probably not going to change because, like you said, they just have a major budget for marketing, and they're always going to find some newcomer which unfortunately is going to fall for the trap. So it's hopefully it gets around, and it's definitely been much better. You start to see kind of people become more aware of it as it grows, but it's a downside of the industry, and it's always going to be there. So unfortunately, that's a fact.
As a capper yourself, and I know you kind of brought this idea to the table. I like it a lot. Just kind of what's kind of like the day in the life for you? You wake up, do you just do some research on some plays? You got your page on Instagram, Gator Sports. What kind of marketing do you do? What's kind of your just day in the life about how you go about making your bets, putting your bets out there, and that community that kind of just surrounds it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of an underlooked part of the industry as well, of kind of what you have to do in addition to just posting picks, because anyone could post picks really. If you look at a board at 6:30, boom, I have 3 picks right now for tonight. But like you said, if you want to be in this industry for a long term and you see yourself in this industry for a long term, you realize it's not just that. And it starts, unfortunately, the night before. Like you look at NHL line movement, you look at NFL line movement, every single sport has line movement. And unfortunately, the NHL is day to day, and that starts the night before. So even tonight, like right now, I have the lines up for tomorrow. Already looking at what's moving, what are the early totals posted, just seeing kind of what DraftKings is offering, what PointsBet's offering, FanDuel, just across the board to see if you can catch an early line or catch a money line for 20 cents cheaper. And it starts with that. And then pretty much you wake up, see what the line moves. But I don't know, but I work 9 to 5, and it's a grind of trying to fit this in there as well, of trying to lunch break, you'll sneak out, whatever, try to look at some more lines, try to see if anything's changed, any injury news, kind of any major changes to the NHL for that day. And then you come home and you're like, all right, it's 5 o'clock. Pretty much have my bets in my head kind of locked in, or if not, I'll post them the night before. It kind of depends on that. And then you go into social media, then you're like, all right, great. Now let's produce some content. So then you do your write-ups and you do your social media posts on Instagram, Twitter, try to promote those as well. And then you're trying to answer DMs and everything like that. So I think the underrated thing of this is marketing, of trying to grow your brand, essentially. I mean, with KB Betting, you guys have done a great job of marketing as well. Extremely well-produced page there, but you see cappers who will just post like their notes app essentially. And it's like, that's not going to grow your page. Like you need to produce some content or put some thought at least into a design behind it. So I think that's definitely an underrated part that you guys do very well.
Yeah, I'll say you're one of the first people we reached out to have on the show, just because, you're in the same boat. We see the way you put your page together. You're including your analysis with your picks. You're putting all that out there for free to the community. We see you got a ton of followers, ton of people engaging with you. And that just really just goes a long way with, that kind of transparency that's needed to be, one of these successful brands. You mentioned all these other guys who are like, unfortunately, they're well known, but they're scamming people left and right. Where there's now this, growing community of real people trying to put out real analysis, real picks that they're actually betting on, that they believe in. So we give you credit for that too.
Like Kyle said, we try to, like, we came into this and we wanted to be transparent. That was one of the things that we really harped on. And obviously, people just putting, their notes page, screenshotted it, that's not very appealing, and we tried to develop a brand, a transparent thing going on, making sure that everyone knew we were not lying about things. Everything we put out was there. And, that's something we appreciate about your page a lot. There's analysis there. You're telling us why you're doing these things. There's proof in the pudding. You're not looking back wondering, how's Gator doing? It's go look right there. So that's a huge thing about this industry, that I think there's a few people out there that are getting a little bit closer to that. There are good people, but unfortunately, there's a lot of scumbags out there.
Yeah, I think the tougher too is, especially like for myself, like I wouldn't consider myself really a big page at all by any means, but you look at the people who are getting hired by these DraftKings, FanDuel accounts. I mean, they're social media personalities. They're not gamblers first. They're social media first who can take people's picks or come up with their own. No like insult on that, but they've mastered social media very well. And they already have a massive following, and then FanDuel or DraftKings or whoever will bring them in to do analysis on gambling. And I think that's kind of the toughest part too, is because I know we're all gamblers first. We gamble first, and then we've got into the social media world, and that's not how it works, which is kind of wrong, I'd say. But I mean, that is the current world that we live in, of all these marketing budgets are targeting these massive social media following personalities that that can bring their whole following and introduce them to gambling and start to get these first time sign up bonuses or these massive odds boosts. And it's tough to try to compete with that, especially given just the other people who are out there. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
No, I completely agree. I think, like you said, it's almost backwards, where someone with a large following on Instagram, Twitter, anything like that, they can know nothing about betting. They can know nothing about the lines. You know, as long as they maybe have that connection with FanDuel, DraftKings, they could just be like, hey, tell everyone to take this money line tonight. We're boosting it. And people are going to do it. People are going to fall for it every time.
Yeah, here's my NBA parlay of the night. Here's 3 just random props that I threw out that we're going to boost to maybe what the parlay should even be, if that, the odds, like based on these books. And it's just so frustrating to watch, but you realize at the end of the day, like, it's still getting clicks, it's still getting views, and it's drawing revenue to these major sports books. And it's not a model they're going to change. It's unfortunately not. So it's tough to watch, but
yeah, I think, you know, what's unique about what we're doing and what you're doing, what a ton of other people in the community are doing now, is kind of just starting from the ground up.
Yep.
You know, we have to just kind of prove ourselves. It really just comes down to winning and being transparent, you know, putting out good content, and just, you know, hoping you get that kind of following to people to trust you, people to know that, like, you know, we're doing this as gamblers first. We might not be social media experts. We might not be, you know, going live every night and partnering with DraftKings, FanDuel, but, you know, we know what we're talking about when it comes to sports. We're confident in our picks. That's kind of the hardest bridge to cross, I think, for a lot of cappers, is just gaining that trust of the people, especially if you want to build a brand around it.
yeah, I mean, I love Pat McAfee and love his show, but you look at what he did. He was not involved in gambling whatsoever, basically. And then FanDuel just dumped a bag on him. And now gambling's involved in every show. And it's the backwards model of, he's got 1,000, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands views on every single show. And what's going to drive that? Views. And that's going to drive revenue to DraftKings of if they sponsor him and provide him with exclusive odds boosts or promos and whatsoever. But I mean, that's how it's going to work now from here on out, which is unfortunate, but you see it happen time in and time out. So
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I love Pat McAfee too. I had a roommate years ago who was a real big Pat McAfee fan. So, you know, seeing that growth and that transition into betting world, it's like, you know, obviously you talked about sports and, you know, teams you thought were doing well in that nature, but it was never like -2.5 plus.
Yep.
There's never all that added into it. So it's definitely interesting. The backwards, I guess how we've called it is, you know, going from capper to social media compared to social media to betting when you already have that exposure. So no, I definitely think it's pretty interesting. You know, obviously some of them, you know, to an extent have some good knowledge, but, you know, there's definitely some people we've seen out there that look like they don't necessarily belong outside of the follower they have.
yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it is. And it's tough to really try to dispute what they're doing because it's working for right now. So we'll see what goes on. And I'm sure as kind of the marketing budget expands for them, they'll look to bring in other social media personalities, which is tough too, because you're trying to grow a brand. And I got lucky enough and get to be picked up by like a website. So that was even a huge bonus for me of just starting on the right page of just starting to produce content for articles and now podcasts. But it's a daily grind, and it's a lot of people. I'd say it's tough to do, especially in the industry with gambling, of you see these people who just randomly pick it up and get brought to these major networks, but that's kind of the only thing you can do is just keep going and keep producing content.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of pages kind of fall off. Beau and I have been doing this for probably a little over a year now. And you see pages just kind of fall off. They can't keep up. They might have a losing week, and that might just be it for them. People lose trust, or they can't keep up with the content. Like you said, it's just a grind. You just got to keep going, and as long as you're confident in what you do and keep putting out good content, I think there's success, there's profit. It's a lot of benefits to being in this industry.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was going through my followers account the other day and just kind of who I'm following, and you see all these accounts that had obviously bought followers or 18,000 and 20,000 that just fell off. And you're like, it's not, you can't just buy followers and expect success overnight. It's not how it's going to work. You need engagement. You need to broadcast yourself to a larger audience, start to connect with other pages, produce more content. And it is a grind. Like, there's no doubt to it. It's very tough to do on a day-to-day basis, but if you want to have long-term success in this industry, I think it's only worth it. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the growth in your page too. It's worth it. Like, it does feel good to kind of know you're building a brand from the ground up and not trying to take any shortcuts. But you see these other guys who come overnight, 18,000 followers, have 2 posts, and you're like, all right, like what's going on here? So, but that goes into the whole industry. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, and you probably know, Beau and I, from the start, we've been putting our face kind of to the brand itself. And I always think that just kind of goes a long way. There's a lot of people you just, you see their page, you're like, I have no idea who this person even is. He's trying to take my money. He's trying to sell me picks, this and that. That's why we're happy to have you on, happy to have you here, and you can kind of talk about what you do. But that kind of transparency factor, I think, goes a long way, where people think they can just buy followers, put up a page, throw on some picks, and just be like, I'm going to be rich overnight. It's going to work. And you just see it time and time again, people just falling off.
Yeah, that's one thing you guys did very well that I didn't do from the start, was put a face to a brand. And that's something I kind of realized as I grew and kind of came, I guess, like just moved on in the industry, as having the face to a brand makes that much more of a difference, of just the transparency factor there, of being people to be able to kind of realize that there is a real person behind this account, and it's not just some branded person wherever. So that was a very smart move by you guys to do from the start originally, of just put yourselves out there. I mean, you're jumping into a crazy industry, but having the guts and the whereabouts marketing wise to just put yourself and your faces behind a brand was huge.
It's always been a little risky,
Yeah.
where our faces are posted on there every day, and then we get some weird DMs here and there, afraid someone's going to come knocking on my door one day, just being like, I lost $1,000 because of you, but hasn't happened yet. Fingers crossed.
No, we appreciate that. And, it's always been nice to kind of have, our face next to it, so we can really go like, this is us. Like,
Yeah.
tonight, this is what we're doing. And then, it definitely goes a long way with people knowing, like you said, there's a real person behind this. It's not just some person behind a computer. Like, this is me, this is what we do. And that really hammers really what we've been trying to talk about, is transparency in the business, trust in business, in a business where there's historically none. So it's really nice to see someone else is working towards that as well. So we really appreciate your page.
Yeah, and I mean, as bad as it sounds, I think people appreciate, like, if you have a losing night, they're like, okay, great, he's losing money too. Like, it's not just them. Basically, they're like, all right, like, everyone's struggling tonight, and which is the worst part of it, because you're like, yeah, I know I lost money, like, I know you did too, but at least we're kind of in the same boat. We'll try to beat the books tomorrow. So,
Kind of on that same page, and kind of just like the last big question for you, do you have any like crazy betting stories, anything that like maybe someone's DM'd you something crazy, maybe you've hit big or lost big, like just anything in general that's kind of just unheard of, or might just blow some people's minds?
yeah, I got a bad one. I got a really bad one, actually. This is the first podcast I went on, and it was, I want to say, a few months ago. And second podcast I went on the Odds Breakers first, but I went on one of the networks, Tail Network. I'll give them a shout out here. But I went on here, and the host, Gail, was like, all right, I'm going to throw a few bands on one of your picks tonight. I went 0 for 3 in the NHL on that night, and I just got killed. And I was like, I feel so bad. I was like, obviously, I'm not throwing bans on every game like you, but I was like, that is so bad. I didn't sleep that night. I'll blatantly put that out there right now. I got murdered that night, and I was like, this is not a good look. This brand is going to take a hit. I'm going to lose my following. It was a struggle for a while after that, just thinking about losing a few bands on him and those picks that night. But yeah, that's probably my worst one. In terms of success, I'd say recently, I mean, hitting Tom Hodge 6-1 and then Scotty Scheffler 25-1 the past 2 weeks were huge picks PGA wise. But no, I've definitely, I mean, you just have to learn to, like, I wouldn't say shrug it off, but you have to understand everyone loses, and you're like, you got to hold yourself accountable. But at the same time, you're like, I don't play the game. I'm not the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like, I'm not out there like competing every night with them. So it's tough. You can do your research and you can do your analysis behind every bet, but you have to realize, like, it's gambling. So that's the one thing I would say is I get people lose money. Like, everyone loses money. I lose money. You guys lose money. Like, it happens, but you have to kind of learn. I'd say it's almost better to learn to cope with the losses than to come with the wins, essentially, in this industry, because you are going to have, especially starting off, more downturns and upturns. And I think that's the biggest thing of young cappers and young people coming into this industry is success isn't going to be handed to you overnight. It's not with anything. Like, it's a grind. You see people do it for years and barely make it out above even, if that. So you have to understand that starting in the industry, like, you're destined to lose. Like, the books take a cut on every bet. Whether you place a bet, the books win. So that's just something you got to start to understand from the beginning, is that the lines aren't exactly the implied probability on any game. Like, there's always a vig in there. So it's kind of as it comes in the industry of just learning more about it. But yeah, no, losing a few bands on my second podcast was not an ideal start to my public appearances.
Oh, that's brutal, man. It's a great story though. It's always tough, you know. Everyone's been there, or they're like telling a friend, or for you went on a podcast, you know. So I can't.
Yeah.
That's pretty brutal. I've definitely been in some situations where I've told a friend, like, hey, you know, like, tonight, like, it's a lock, and of course, you know, nothing is a lock. And then, you know, you kind of learn to, you know, when to tell people certain things, and obviously everything's with a grain of salt. You know, these are, and people saying 100 unit whale lock, you know, it's like there are no locks.
No.
And that's really what we come to realize as time goes on. And, you know, it's pretty great that he put some faith into you, though. That's a great feeling. It's just like a roller coaster from there.
Unfortunately, it didn't pan out too well. So I still feel bad about that pick. But yeah, no, was not on my gambling luck that night, I'd say, at all, by any means. But yeah, I mean, lock, like, that's the first red flag anyone should look for in the industry. If someone says it's a lock, like, don't go to that page. Don't interact with that page. It's the biggest red flag you can have when you post any picks.
Yeah, man. Well, let you just kind of wrap it up here. If you had anything you wanted to plug in, your social handles, anything you got going on, feel free to just let everyone know.
Yeah, on Twitter, you can find me at Gator Betting. Instagram's Gator Sports Betting. And then you can find me, I'll do a weekly NHL gambling podcast called Expected Bets 4. You can find that on Apple and Spotify. And then if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you can see I post daily NHL articles as well. But I want to thank you guys for having me on. This has been an awesome talk.
Yeah, man. We'll have to do some more content here again.
Definitely,
soon.
for sure.
It's been fun.
Yes. Thanks again for having me on, guys.
All right, man. Take it easy. Have a good night. Best of luck on your bets. Hopefully, we're all not getting any DMs in the morning.
Let's hope so. No picks were given out, so we should be good here. Yeah, I want to thank you guys again. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon.